Pieter, thanks for joining us. What's the feeling in the low carbon business community like at the moment, given the Eurozone crisis and given these talks in Durban? How optimistic are you at the moment?
That's a tough question. For me, it's no doubt that climate change and everything that is connected to it is getting more and more attention, despite maybe the failure of good outcomes here, because people start to experience it in their daily lives. So if you live in Australia, you know it. If you live in Germany or the Netherlands, you know it. So the attention will be there, and because of that, there will be also more and more interest in companies working on combating climate change, on renewable energies and all the things related. But I mean, how slow it's going here doesn't really help. That's obvious.
And from a financial perspective, have you noticed business slowing down over the past year?
Yes, for sure. I mean, not so much in our company. We are, as I explained before, in the voluntary carbon markets, and that is a relatively stable market at the moment. But it's also a very small market. If you compare it with the compliance markets, the Kyoto Protocol created a CDM, an own carbon market. That one is so unreliable at the moment, and the voluntary market is very much differentiated. It are little companies doing their own things, and they have set it up with the view to work on it for maybe 10 to 20 years. So that is still continuing, and there's more projects coming there, and they feel very comfortable in working in that sector. But it's smaller.
How big is the voluntary market around the world?
So last year there was about 65 million tons of carbon that were traded in total, which is, and I think it is 1 billion in the compliance markets. So there you see it's smaller, but it's really going steadily up every year. And yeah, well, maybe we'll talk about that later, but what you see is that carbon is a very attractive additional component for projects to bring in particular now when land is getting more and more scarce, people are trying new things, and carbon might be the additional finance they're looking for to make their project feasible. And in the economic crisis we're in at the moment, people are looking for, in particular in Germany and companies, countries in Europe, people are really looking at long-term investments. There's a change in thinking, I see that, and we're profiting from that.
And the voluntary carbon market, I think that's quite interesting, because what's in it for companies? This is voluntary. They don't have to invest in these projects, but they do so out of a sense of corporate social responsibility or just goodwill towards the environment.
Yeah, that's true. So you see that more and more that companies have a climate strategy or have a sustainability strategy overall. And you also see more and more companies that get specialized in actually helping companies to become more carbon friendly, to operate more sustainably, to maybe look at their whole supply chain, what they can do. So there's a market built to work on such things. So it's also demand driven. I mean, consumers are getting more and more aware of that. You can see that in organic products that are getting sold more and more. Fair trade is getting more traction. So there's still a lot of work to do, but we're on the right track there.
And tell us briefly about the project that you're looking after in Peru. It sounded quite interesting, a mixture of forestry and coffee beans.
Yeah. So Carbonfix has various kinds of projects all over the world that are using its standard to become certified. And one of the projects is a project in Peru. That is a small-scale project set up by, I think, 500 farmers. And they had land that was totally degraded. It was used for coffee farming for about 25 to 30 years, and then nothing would grow there anymore, all soils were eroded. So now they do a combination of tree planting and coffee planting. So the trees are actually preventing the soils to degrade and to erode again. And the coffee is a new staple food they're producing there. And they're selling both the coffee as the carbon offsets to Café Direct, which is a coffee brand in the UK. It's fair trade certified as well. And it's a beautiful business case where Café Direct and the coffee farmers together start to feel responsible for healthy soils and sustainable production. Yeah.